So now we move to the last session of this Sales and Marketing Summit. Post the workshop that we had on marketing, now we will move to a workshop on sales. Very aptly titled, Closing the Deal and When is the Right Time to Ask for the Order. We've been talking about how to align sales and marketing, how to manage data, how to cleanse data, how to make our apps better, how to market well. But at the end of the day, we need to know when is the right time to ask for the order, and we have to ask for it. We cannot shy away from it. To run the session, we have with us Krishnakumar Iyer, who is the CEO of MindIT. KK comes with about 28 years of deep IT experience across India, the US, Australia, and Singapore. He has worked with world-class organizations like IBM, PwC, Siemens, and Mastek. He has performed in a wide spectrum of roles, from large client account management to consulting to technology lead to pre-sales and organization processes lead. He has led and involved in deal sizes ranging from $5 million to $250 million. He is a certified APMP foundation level by the Association of Proposal Management Professionals. With that, welcome KK. I'd like to join. And over to you. Thank you.
Just take over from here. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me at the back. So good afternoon. The session before lunch is always the most interesting, depending on your viewpoint. So I'll try and keep it as exciting as I possibly can. I got a little bit of a transitioning job that I need to do. I think the previous speakers, Garima, Sesha, and Ankush, talked about marketing and how marketing leads to customer acquisition, engagement, advocacy, etc., etc. And I was thinking, how do I best explain this role between marketing and sales and all of those? And it just struck me that maybe I should talk about the thing which is most predominant in the news, which is whatever is happening between India and our very good friendly neighbor. So over the last quite a few months, a lot of activity has been happening, a lot of discussions have been happening over the news channels, social media, newspapers, among your friend circles, etc., etc. And of course, everything that the government has been doing and so on and so forth. And to me, that is probably a good representation of marketing. And the surgical strike is sales. Because at the end of the day, sales is all about delivering a particular outcome, which is you have a firm customer or client on hand who's ready to buy your product and service. You have some kind of a contract signed, and hopefully he's going to pay your bills. That to me is the ultimate representation of sales. So having said that, I think I'm going to try and cover some of the facets of sales and selling and therefore closing the deal. I'm going to just start off with a couple of questions which I think, scroll right. Yes. I think many of you have answered that, so I'll just quickly go through. How many are from B2C companies? I did see quite a few hands going up. Okay. B2B and B2G. Okay, good. Just in case you don't know what is B2G, B2G is B2 government. Okay. How many are from sales client acquisition function? I did see a few hands going up. How many are from product companies? Okay, that's good. How many are from services organizations? Okay. And how many are from bid and proposal management function, also called pre-sales? Okay, just a handful, so on and so forth. And how many are just here for curiosity? One hand, two hand. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for being candid. Okay, what I'm going to do here is throw a question up in front of you. What is the difference between a customer and a client? Anybody wants to go? Customer buys a product and a client buys a service. Okay? All right? I'm not saying you're right or wrong, I'm just acknowledging what you're saying. Okay? So customer is a one-time deal and you don't have to have a relationship, whereas with the client you have to have a relationship. Okay? If I may ask you a personal question, if you don't mind, what toothpaste do you use? Close Up. And how many years have you been using it? Many, many years. Fair enough. But there is one particular toothpaste that you have been using for many years, I would imagine. Most of us do. So does that fit into the definition of a customer? It does. Okay. All right. But you're still buying it many, many times. Okay, you don't maintain a relationship. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. I'm just acknowledging your point. I'm not saying right or wrong. Okay, who wants to go? Anybody else? Yes, please. You change every time. So therefore, you're talking of your toothpaste, I presume.
So I believe when I came aware of it, each of them give you the same stuff. So why not to change? Why to buy the same stuff again and again?
Okay. So in this case, your behavior is more like a customer or more like a client with regards to the toothpaste company?
Regards to the awareness what you are buying for it, then you make a choice. If you are not aware what you are buying, what you're paying, then obviously you believe to buy closer for the 10 years. But if you believe that there's some change, you want salt, you want mint, you want something different, then you pay for, you put your value into it.
Sure.
So you then make a choice if I'm actually paying what I want. If it's a toothache, I go for Emofoam. I do not buy Colgate. So I know where my problem lies and where should I pay.
Boy, that's a lot of complex thinking for a toothpaste.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a point blank question. In the eyes of the toothpaste company, is your behavior more like a customer or your behavior more like a client? What will be your answer? Or not sure, that's also fine.
See, I would believe I'm a customer only.
You are a customer to the toothpaste company. Okay, fair enough. Yes, please.
A customer, let's say, I'm a customer, I buy, let's say, Colgate toothpaste. I became a customer,
Yes.
right? Now, client, for instance, right, say, you take example of TCS, right? TCS does some kind of software development to, let's say, Airtel. So for TCS, Airtel becomes a client.
Okay.
So that's how I differentiate between customer and client.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Have a seat.
Yeah.
So he says that for TCS, Airtel is a client, and for the Colgate, the toothpaste company, he's a customer. Okay. Yes, please. You have a different view?
Yeah, my take would be a customer is an actual consumer of your product, and client could be a, in between a channel, may not be the actual consumer. So for example, let's take a client could be any company which needs toothpaste for its employees. So customer could be an employee, and client, it is through that I am approaching as a manufacturer. I am approaching client, but it is customer is the actual person who is going to give me a feedback on this. And the client is not going to give any feedback on this.
So let me ask you a question. Therefore, there are terms which are also getting used called consumers or end user.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the behavior of these people be more consumer-like or end-user-like? I'm just asking. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it's my take on it. So that's it. So there can be more debate on it. Yeah.
More debate on it. Okay. So you are also a little probably unsure whether there is a watertight definition for customer or not. Okay. Fair enough. Yes, please.
Customer buys it and he's just using it. Probably he's giving some feedback. Wherein there's a relationship maintained with the client.
Okay.
Wherein it's a long process, and he gives us feedback, we work, give solutions. Whereas the thin line is, I think it is relation. There's
Okay.
a very thin relation with the customer, but we have a solid relation with the client,
Okay.
wherein we understand most of the needs and try to deliver.
Okay. So what you're saying is that the toothpaste company doesn't see the need to maintain a relationship with him, and neither does he see a need to maintain a relationship with the toothpaste company. Or as he says, I know I feel like changing it to a mint toothpaste. I walk into the store, buy a mint toothpaste, and use it. Okay. Fair enough. Yes, please.
To start a company, you need a customer, but to grow a company, you need a client.
Interesting. So help me understand. So let's say you started a company. You acquired your first customer. Okay. You acquired your second customer. You acquired your third, and so on and so forth. At what stage do you change into a client acquisition?
So
Could
he
you help me
helps you grow. So he helps you grow in terms of revenue, in terms of knowledge, in terms of data. He helps you grow in all verticals that you want.
Okay. So help me understand. So you're within your organization and you're discussing customer acquisition and all of those. At what stage does your language change from saying, hey, we have to go and acquire this customer, and somebody says, no, we are not acquiring a customer, now we are acquiring a client. You know why? Because we're already grown. Is that a line that you cross?
It depends on what stage your company is.
Okay.
So for example, if I'm a large company and being a large company, I want to introduce new products and services, I would still go and acquire new customers.
Okay.
But to build my company, I would still need a lot of clients.
Okay. So to pose a question to you, somebody mentioned TCS. For TCS, Airtel is a client, and at some point,
TCS could be a customer also if there's something new that is introducing.
Sure, that is if you are selling to TCS, I presume.
Yeah.
Or
TCS could start as a customer, become a client, and you could again go back as a customer for a new product of TCS that is being sold.
okay, all right. So there are multiple transitions that companies go through. Customer, client, back to customer is what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, fair enough. I'm not saying you're right or wrong, I'm just acknowledging. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I would say B2B is client and B2C is a customer.
Yeah, right.
B2B is client, B2C is customer. Okay, I will park your point and I'll pose a different scenario, and let me see if that your definition holds that test. Okay. Yes, please. Somebody had a hand up.
Yeah, I think there are three terminologies here. I mean, customer, client, and consumer. I would see all of these three separately, right? So customer is someone, we don't have a face associated. We don't need to know their name.
Okay.
It's more of retail, somebody walks in and then you become a customer. It's almost like a one-time transaction.
Sure.
But if you put a name to him and then have a relationship ongoing, even in retail, you go with loyalty, you go with all sorts of, ways you can maintain somebody, right? And client is also, I think, more associated with professional services business rather than product business. And then third is consumer, wherein really an end user, where you don't even know who he is, but then you make something for certain categories of consumers and then you target your product towards that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's about.
So we're all from the tech world, and let's acknowledge that our world is complex, lots of changes happening, mind-boggling many a times, disruptive, and we're all struggling to kind of deal with it and come to terms with it. Let's get out of this world. Is there any profession or industry where they call their customers clients? Bank, any other example?
Lawyers?
Lawyers, okay, interesting. Who said lawyers? You said lawyers. So are you saying lawyers always call their customers clients?
Not only, but normally they use the terminology. Like
They use that terminology.
we are
Okay.
into B2B2C,
Okay.
and when we finalize the camp or service camp at, for example, Tech Mahindra, we call them a client. But who are the customers who avail our services over there, we call them a customer. It's a terminology we use.
So you're just kind of flexible about the terminology. Let's come back to the lawyer example. You say lawyers call their customer clients. What's happening between the lawyer and the client, you think?
It's a long process.
Okay.
They may be associated for years and all.
Okay.
And maybe on a retainership basis or something. Even when it's a commercials, it's
Sure.
on a retainership basis or something like that.
Sure.
Or
Okay.
maybe your doctor normally they call it
Let's
patient.
focus on lawyer, because I
Okay.
think lawyer is something which, I'm just trying to get the discussion focused a little bit so that we can use this definition to see, differentiate between the two. Yes, please, you wanted to say something?
There is a need which the lawyer is trying to solve.
Okay.
So, and that need differs with all his clients. I mean, most of the clients. He's trying to focus on the need, he's trying to give tailor-made solutions.
Okay, so what you're saying is if I'm a lawyer, if this gentleman walks into my office with, say, a property dispute, and this gentleman walks into my office with a property dispute, each one of these property disputes, although they are called property disputes, are unique. That's what you're saying. Okay, all right. Anybody disagrees with this definition or a totally different viewpoint? Yes, please. Okay, so as a lawyer, you're sharing your expertise, okay, or an accountant, or a doctor, okay, fair enough.
Sir?
Yeah, hello.
Confidential information, somebody was saying? Yes, okay.
You share a confidential information which, unlike close-up or any other product, you don't usually share that.
Absolutely. So property dispute A versus property dispute B, both parties share confidential information with the lawyer. The process is long, right? I think one of you said the process is long. Anything else that's happening?
Well,
Sir?
when we talk with our sales and engagement teams, you call them customers.
I'm sorry?
When you talk with the sales marketing teams, yeah, you refer them to as customers. But when you talk to your delivery servicing guys, you talk about the same guys as clients. I mean, the same guy, but the sales teams refers them to as customers, and your service delivery guys refers them to a client.
I see. So what you're saying is within the same organization, you will have two terminologies being used. Sales calling them as customers and delivery guys calling them as clients. That's what you're saying.
Sir?
Okay, I'll just park that. Somebody's calling me out.
Sir,
I can't figure out where. There. Yes, please.
Sir, based on the discussion with respect to lawyer, what I understand is when you are offering services, right, that's where normal terminology that is used is client. And when you're offering a product, right, that's where I think the terminology that is used is customer.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Does a restaurant provide you a service?
They offer product and service both.
But they do offer a service.
Correct.
Do the restaurants call you a client?
No, they call customer.
Therefore, they call you a customer. So not all services necessarily mean client.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'm just giving you a counter example to see how it stacks up. Yes, please.
Thank you.
I'm a customer for them. For Make My Trip, I'm a customer for them. But when exactly they're working with my company, they're a client. Like I can be a preferred customer there, I can be a normal customer there, and a repeated customer, but when my company is working with them, they're actually a client and not a customer.
Okay, okay. But when you are booking your tickets through Make My Trip, you're booking it as an individual or you're booking tickets on behalf of your company?
When I am booking for myself, I'm a customer there.
Okay.
And then if they are providing you services, I mean, if you see any travels or Make My Trip or anyone, they give you some, what do you say, some benefits or something. So they call you client over there. They don't call you a customer.
Okay. So which goes back to one of the earlier gentlemen saying a definition that any B2B is client, any B2C is customer. I think one of the gentlemen somewhere made that statement. Okay, we'll just have one last sort of view on this.
When you need, when you have a,
who's talking? I can't make out. Sorry.
When you have to make multiple interactions with for a service or a product to close a deal, you call it a client. Or it's a one-time deal, it's a customer. That's my view. It may be wrong.
Okay, so when there are multiple interactions, it's a client, and there is a single interaction, it's a customer is what you're saying. How do you draw a line, and how do organizations use what semantics within their organization? So when they have had the first conversation with the customer, they say, okay, he's customer now. Moment you go to the second conversation, he's a client. Do they have those sort of discussions or lines drawn?
No, it
I would
depends.
imagine not.
It depends on the kind of business or the product or
Okay.
service.
Okay.
Like you said, for the advocates, no, it may not be just one time sitting which will do the job. I mean, for both sides.
Sure.
It is a, what do you call, multiple sittings or something like that, and it goes continuous.
Okay.
So that's what I meant by that.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing here?
Last one.
Yeah. It's the difference between hunting and farming, I guess. So a customer is where you hunt and find new customers, and the first time you meet them, that's a customer. But if they come back to you for repeated service, or they continue to subscribe to your product repeatedly or whatever, if there is a repeat interaction, which is a commercial interaction with that entity, then it's a client. But if it's a one-time interaction, it's a customer.
So what you're saying, to use your definition with, say, TCS before acquiring the client or during the acquisition stage with the client keeps calling them as customer.
Correct.
And moment the acquisition happens, they change the language and now call them client?
It's not necessarily the moment it happens.
Okay.
But if that customer comes back to you and says, I now want the next bit of your service,
Okay.
or I want to continue with your product, then there is a longer term relationship, and therefore they become a client. But
Okay.
if it is a one-time interaction and you're just selling them something and you know that it's not going to continue beyond that, that's
Okay.
a customer. So that's why I said hunting and farming, because sales team is always trying to acquire customers through the hunting activities,
Right.
whereas the delivery team is looking to convert them into clients through their farming activities.
Okay.
That's my...
So, but companies also use the term prospect. Where does that fit in?
Prospecting comes before all of this. So it is, prospecting is when the marketing is generating leads and they're giving you prospect saying this guy is a possible prospect. It's a possibility.
So,
And
so prospect is out there. Moment you have the first conversation, it says, hey, now we have changed it into customer.
we will try to convert him into a
You will try to convert him. And once you have signed the first deal, he continues to be called as customer. Then now when you sign the second deal, you call him client. Is that how the transition works in your view?
That's what I think, yeah.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Okay, as you can see, just these two terms alone has generated enough heat in this debate. Interesting, right? At least did you expect this? Again, let's get out of our industry. Our industry is too complex, lots of changes happening. Let's go back to the lawyer world, right? So do you all agree that when party A comes with a property dispute and party B comes with a property dispute, both property disputes are uniquely different? Do you agree? Is there anybody who disagrees on this point? What does a lawyer do? So when this gentleman walks in with a property dispute, as a lawyer, what do you think I will be doing? I will hear and charge fees, of course I will do. I will rip him off, don't worry. What else will I do? Study, yes. Analyze, yes. Advise also, ask a lot of questions. Why am I doing all this? Fight a case against whoever the other disputing party is. Fair enough. That's the end goal. But why am I doing all this questioning and asking him, and each case is unique? To provide a solution. But why am I doing all this? He's used a very key word in whatever he said. What do you think was the key word he used? Maybe you didn't hear it. Just give him the mic and loud enough, he can tell you the key word.
So he has certain questionnaire which we asked.
Yep.
Because based on his profession, he knows. When I ask this questionnaire, the inputs what I get from him, I'll be able to decide on what solution should I give.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking him all the questions. Understand?
That's the key word, folks. That really is the difference between client and customer. When a toothpaste company is trying to sell him, they're not trying to understand his Brushing habits. Sir, what time do you brush in the morning? Can we come and watch you? It doesn't happen. In fact, he doesn't even exist in their database. They don't know him. He knows about the company, fair enough. And the cost of switching is extremely low. As he said, today I feel like using mint toothpaste, tomorrow I'll use charcoal toothpaste. God knows all the varieties that are available and he'll use it. The fundamental difference between client and customer is understanding. That's really the key word here. And this word is an extremely powerful word. If you break that word understand, it comprises of two things called under and stand. Go back to your own lives, you know. You have your spouses, your parents, your siblings, your relatives, friends, colleagues, peers, etc., etc. And you'll always establish some connect with some people and with some you don't. And you'll always say, I have a very good understanding with him or her, you know. And you'll always notice that the understanding always gets developed whenever you stand under. It's a metaphor, which means you are deeply listening and you're asking questions so that you understand the situation better. That's what happens in client to provider relationship, and that's what does not happen between a customer and a provider relationship, folks. So go back to all your definitions, everything that you gave out, and think about it in these terms, okay? And hopefully they'll give you an idea between why lawyers call their customers clients, why TCS calls their customers clients, and why a Colgate calls him a customer. So in business, you have the entire customer to client continuum, okay? And if you'll see, there are a few characteristics that you will see which distinguishes very clearly between customer and client. Relationship, extremely transactional. In the case of a customer, in client, deep understanding. Lawyers have multiple meetings, spends a lot of time doing research, talks to maybe an extended family, talks to other lawyers maybe, trying to develop deep understanding. Switching cost, he just mentioned it. I switch toothpaste like this. In a client relationship, switching cost is extremely high. If Airtel wants to switch its service provider from TCS to some other organization, the cost of switching is extremely high. Volumes are high in customer versus few in client case. A TCS will have in a few thousands of clients. A Colgate will have crores in terms of customers, right? Value is high. What's the cost of a toothpaste? 60 rupees, 100 rupees, something like that? What's the cost of a deal between Airtel and TCS? Literally running into millions. Selling is largely done marketing and advertising. Whereas in clients, it's references and individual selling. When you wanted to go to the lawyer, what will he do? Hey, I have a property dispute. He'll go and ask a few friends. Hey, do you know a good lawyer who helps in property disputes? Right? Very rarely you're likely to go online and check a lawyer. You're more likely to ask your friends and relatives and, to get that lawyer reference. Organization connect, nil. Here, the toothpaste company has never ever contacted you in your life, in spite of the fact that you have been using the toothpaste for decades. In the client case, it's many to many. There are many people within the provider organization talking to the client organization. Therefore, things become a lot more complex. Customization, extremely high in the client case, nil in the case of a toothpaste, right? The key point of this slide here is to say that while I have kind of painted an extreme scenario of customer and client, there are many businesses who will demonstrate behavior of both customer and client, and they can be either on the left side of this arrow or leaning more towards the right side of it, okay? So just keep that in mind is all I wanted to say. And the reason why I'm bringing this aspect here is that when you're focusing on B2B kind of sales and deals and all of those, the understanding is the primary driver of being able to close a deal or not. Okay? That's really the key point to keep in mind. Having said that, all clients go through a typical process of buying. And mind you, this process of buying is actually not very different from you and I buying stuff. And of course, you and I buying stuff will vary significantly from buying a toothpaste to, say, buying an apartment for our living. Okay? The primary driver being, what's the real issue behind me buying a flat or an apartment, for example, to then assessing the needs of, does the laser work here? Sorry, I'm just attempting one. Laser does not work on this? No? Doesn't work, okay, sorry. So, to assessing the needs, so when you're going out there to buy an apartment, you assess your needs, locality, maybe children's schooling, maybe parents might want to come, or maybe access to the airport. There are a variety of things that you go through, right? Evaluate the solutions. You will look at multiple properties before you make that decision, and finally resolve and implement. Clients go through the same journey as well. Yes, the complexity is of a significantly higher order because, let's say, for example, a multi-million, multi-billion-dollar business wants to implement SAP, for example. It can go through multiple iterations, multiple rounds of discussions, and so on and so forth. I'm just reminded of the SAP implementation deal that we were pursuing with a very large European conglomerate, Tetra Pak. And I was working in Singapore, and my partner literally was making a trip to Copenhagen every week to meet the board of directors. Okay? And he had a team of about 30 people working with him to help close that deal. That deal was so strategic for us. When we closed it, the deal was $200 million US. And believe it or not, over a period of 7 years, we would have built $1 billion of revenues or fees with Tetra Pak. That's the kind of size that we are talking about. Okay? So it needs that level of engagement. It needs that multiple levels of interactions to be able to build that understanding of the client and then be able to close the deal, so to speak. So having said that, what happens is that while buyers go through those sort of cycles, sellers also go through a particular cycle. The first one being, of course, the entire marketing activity. So the marketing activity is more like a broadcast, like a radio broadcast, you know. You keep broadcasting, you're saying, hey, I exist. Hey, I provide this service. Hey, I'm great at this. Here are so many clients who have worked with me. Come and talk to us. Give us a call. That's where a lead comes through. Post which, it gets into the actual selling of the services or products to that organization. Okay? So sales comes in typically at a later stage, and then it's the sales organization which takes this opportunity and brings it to closure. So one of the key points that always comes up is, at what stage should sales engage with the client? Should it be at the business issue time, or should it be at the time when the entire implementation is being done and post-implementation? Obviously, the answer is, the earlier the sales team engages with the client, the better its ability to sell. And why is that? It's simply because you are in a much better ability to influence the client's thinking. Okay? The client is confused. Should I implement SAP? Should I implement Oracle Labs? I mean, should I maybe go for a centralized approach to SAP implementation, or should I go for a very federated model, you know, across my different geographies, for example? A lot of complex issues to be dealt with. Okay? And that's where, if the provider is engaged with the client, he's in a much better to influence those decisions. Right? That's really the key message or mantra of the slide. Don't get too overwhelmed by a whole lot of stuff in that slide, but if you can keep this overall conceptual picture in mind, then you will be in a much more better position to appreciate this and take it forward. Sorry, I think I skipped one slide. Yeah. So one of the things that a study was done by the APMP. APMP is the Association of Proposal Management Professionals, where I work with them very closely in the US. And what they found out was that the good organizations spend about 80% of the time before an RFP is issued. Just in case you don't know what an RFP is a request for proposal, a formal proposal from the provider organization. 80% of the time is spent during RFP and prior to the RFP. Why? Because if you are not engaged with the client, you are not developing that understanding with the client, your ability to win that particular opportunity diminishes massively. In fact, the mantra that we advise our clients is that whenever you receive an RFP and that's the first time that you're seeing that RFP, don't even attempt to bid, because it's pretty much a lost deal. Okay? If you're not engaged with the client prior to the issue of the RFP, you're wasting your time. Something which is absolutely supported by data that you can see here. So having said that, one of the issues that you may or may not have experienced, and I want to hear your views, is your sales function, and you have typically the rest of the organization. And many a time, say, the rest of the organization have some very strong views about sales, and which is to say they overpromise, they don't know what they are selling, all kinds of accusations get floated around about sales. And sales is typically, reaction is that, hey, I'm not getting enough support from the organization. This is what the client wants, and if the organization doesn't support me, I'm not in a position to sell. Any of you experience this? How many of you? The sales versus rest of the organization battles? So folks, this is a battle which, in my view, is never going to go away. If you ever think that this battle is ever going to get solved, perish the thought. In fact, this battle is, or rather let me rephrase it and say that this conflict is a very good thing in organizations. Okay? And I'll just give you a simple example. Today the Indian IT industry is what? 140 billion, 150 billion, the NASSCOM guys will confirm that, something like that, and counting, right? What was the event which created the Indian IT industry, you think? Sorry? Y2K. So the Y2K event was the one which got the Indian industry to take off. Can you imagine the conversations somewhere in the mid-90s between a sales guy talking to a CIO in the US somewhere in mid-90s and telling him, Y2K is coming, Y2K is coming, Y2K is coming, you better do something about it or you're dead, or you're dead. And CIO says, yes, 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 but I don't know what to do. And the sales guy says, you know what, we'll solve it for you. How? You got a lot of code to be fixed, and we have lots of people in India. So you don't have the resources. Even if you get the resources, it's going to cost you a bomb. And you don't need these resources once a Y2K is fixed. Absolutely. So here is a sales guy who's convinced the CIO and comes back to his provider organization in India and has this conversation with the delivery engagement guys. He says, you know what, this is what we are going to do. What do you think the delivery engagement guys would be telling the sales guy? Are you mad? We can't do this. That code is sitting there. I don't know how to connect. I don't know how that code looks. We need to understand that code. This is impossible. We can't do it. And here's a poor sales guy trying his best to convince the delivery and engagement guy to say that, let's do it. This is a customer problem. It's a client problem which we've got to solve. Thank goodness the sales guys overruled the delivery and engagement guys. Without which this industry wouldn't have been there. In fact, one of my propositions to NASSCOM is to say that as much as we have an unknown, in Delhi you have the Amar Jawan for the unknown soldier, I think NASSCOM should create some memorial for that unknown sales guys who created this industry for us, without which we wouldn't be here. It's a phenomenal thing, right? When you look back over the last, what, now 20, 21 years, how this whole industry has shaped up and taken shape, it's because those sales guys pushed and pushed and pushed, both the client as well as your organization to do it. Okay. The point here is that you will see some significant differences between the way they operate and the way delivery and engagement guys operate. I'll run through quickly. Sales guys, high energy. You'll never see a drooped shoulder sales guy. He'll always be high energy. He always wants to close that deal right now, because that if you don't close it now, you don't give me that email or you don't give me that document, my $5 million deal is going to get stuck. For the sales guy, every opportunity is the world's greatest deal. And you know why that behavior comes out of? All this behavior comes out because of only one reason: rejection. What salespeople have to go through is rejection every day. Sales guys, raise your hands. I'm doing a sales job for you here. Every day salespeople have to go through rejection. And the only way that they can get out of it is behavior like this. So don't blame them, folks. Everybody who's not in sales, one day gets into sales, in 6 months, you'll be demonstrating the same behavior. So it's role, it's the environment, it's the ecosystem, everything put together, which creates a behavioral pattern in there. Okay. So the key question here is, what do I have to do who's not into sales, for example? Your role is to make sure that you're supporting sales and supporting them in every which way possible. Now, that does not mean you can't disagree with them. By all means, disagree with them. Have those conflicts, but let it not be personality based, let it be more issue based, and you will see a world of difference there. Okay. That really is the key thing here. Just imagine, the other day I was meeting up with Tech Mahindra, and we were just doing some quick back of the envelope numbers, and Tech Mahindra is about roughly what, 100,000 people, 1 lakh people, and they have about 1,000 sales guys. So one sales guy is producing 1,000 jobs, rather 100 jobs, I'm sorry. One sales guy is producing 100 jobs. So every one of us who's not in sales owe it to the sales guys for the job. And therefore, working with sales and supporting them in closing those deals is absolutely crucial for the rest of the organization. That really is the key mantra as far as this slide is concerned. Having said that, when you are dealing with this large B2B type engagements and organization, you will see opportunities coming up in a variety of forms and shapes. But you take any opportunity, you can fit them pretty much in this quadrants, right? You have RFP based, non-RFP based, from existing clients or from prospects. Just for your definition purpose, prospect is somebody who you have never done business with, okay? Right? And each one of them comes with its own dynamics. Typically with an existing client, don't sell your company. Don't talk great things about your company. They already know about you. Focus on the solution. What is the problem you're going to solve as far as the client is concerned? You do that, the chances are high that the client is going to buy the services from you. One such experience that we had was a very large mutual fund and broking house in the US based out of Boston wanted to replace one of their legacy systems with a completely brand new technology. And they floated a RFP for that. And we were, of course, a tier 2 type company, but an incumbent. And there were all the top-notch companies who were bidding for it, including IBM, Accenture, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, name it. All the tier 1 players versus we were the only tier 2 player. And guess what? We won the deal. This was $5 million. Okay? Application development, mission critical, top technology, the best solution architects that they wanted, technical architects, you name it. The only reason we won was as part of our sales process and bidding team, we put in a guy who had 20 years of work with Citibank, who knew exactly how a mutual fund house works. He worked with our bid and proposal team to put together a proposal and a proof of concept, which was so unique that the client just said, this is great, this is exactly what we want, you guys have understood it. Everything called branding, marketing at that point in time became secondary, because at that point in time, what client wanted to establish was who understands my world best, and I'm going to go with him. That was really the reason why the deal was, and we had absolutely huge margin on this, by the by, which is, somebody was talking about price sensitivity. Here was a case where our margin was double what was our target margin. So it was as, what should I say, sweet a pie as you could have ever got. So, having said that, you will have a variety of opportunities to deal with, and every opportunity, the way the client looks at it and the way you will look at it can be radically different, okay? And appreciating that context is extremely important, okay? Let me give you a couple of analogies here just to illustrate this whole point. Let's say, for example, you didn't know how to drive a car, and you just recently acquired driving skills. Now that you have acquired the driving skills, you can take your family out on a car, go on a vacation, picnic, from point A to point B, have a joyous ride, listen to music, eat, stop wherever you want, etc., etc. That's one such scenario. The other scenario is a scenario where, let's say you now become an ambulance driver. Mind you, both scenarios, you're applying the same set of driving skills. Clutch, brake, accelerator, indicator, horn, AC, whatever. But in the case of you driving an ambulance, somebody's life or death is in your hands. In the first scenario, it's a joyride, right? But what's happening? The skills that you're deploying are the same. So what happens is that when it is a strategic buy for a client, it is typically infrequent, it has organization-wide impact, and it's high risk. Okay? The same could be a strategic sell for a provider, okay, which is high value, it's a huge stretch for your organization, highly customized response, and even may require partnering. Many a times what happens is that what is a strategic buy for a client could be more of an operational sell for the provider. Like in PwC, for example, what was a strategic buy for Tetra Pak? Because they would have bought an SAP once in 20, 30 years maybe. Unlikely they will, once they buy SAP, they're not going to replace it very, very quickly. Whereas we in PwC would have done dozens and dozens of implementation of SAP. So it's an extremely strategic buy for client, and they're extremely concerned about risk. Because they don't know what to implement, how to implement, they don't have the skills and expertise. And they are talking to a PwC who's done this multiple times. The challenge for us as provider organizations who are in that quadrant, which is for us it's a routine kind of sell, but for the client is a very strategic buy, is how do you convey to them that yes, while there are risks, they are manageable risks and we know how to manage those risks. This is a very, very important thing to convey, wherever you are a provider organization in B2B context. I still remember in the mid-90s when I was living in Singapore, the IRAS, which is the income tax department of the government of Singapore, floated a very large tender for replacing their IT systems. And Accenture got the job. And they made a very telling statement in the press statement. They said, we chose Accenture because they will tell us exactly what needs to be done in a large systems implementation like this. So IRA has kind of recognized the fact that it's a strategic, so to speak, one-time, one-generation buy, versus for Accenture, it would have been something which they have done it multiple times. And they felt more comfortable going with an Accenture because, one, they understood their requirements, and more importantly, they were in a position to alleviate, mitigate the risks of such a large implementation. Okay? Something always to bear in mind. And appreciating this context of your client is extremely important. It goes back to the property dispute. A property dispute in your life is probably going to be, hopefully, once in a lifetime. But the lawyer is dealing with property disputes day in and day out. But imagine a scenario if he were to treat you very flippantly. What's the big deal? No, we'll solve it. Don't worry about it. It'll all get solved. And, you know, moment he befaces that, it'll start making you very uncomfortable. Saying, no, hang on, he seems to be brushing this aside so easily. Chances are you'll walk away from that lawyer and go to somebody else. This is an appreciation that we need to demonstrate to our clients time and again, folks. Okay. Doesn't work from this distance. So, the key challenge for us in B2B type organizations and trying to acquire clients is that while sales by itself is a very, very exciting area, it can range from heart attacks to roller coaster kind of thrills. The challenge is to bring in boredom into excitement. That's what I call it. Because at the end of the day, these large deals, these complex deals, don't get struck by individuals' heroics. The entire organization needs to be with the sales organization to make these deals happen. And how do you set that up to make sure that at the end of the day, sales is successful? Broadly working on these three quadrants. Do you have the right processes in place? You know, right from opportunity management to solutioning, being able to devise win strategies, reviews. Are you reviewing what is happening? Because at the end of the day, given the fact this is complex, get more people to come and view how the opportunity is progressing. It could be delivery, it could be engagement, it could be top management, it could even be your partners, okay? If you're willing to open up a little more to your partners, for example. Putting together best-in-class proposals in front of your clients, for example, and being able to then defend it in front of your clients. Something which has to be in a rigorous process method. Mind you, sales by its very nature are little averse to organization processes. Mind you, they're not process, you can't accuse them of not being process oriented. It's just that they like to follow their own processes, defined by them, followed by them. They may typically not like to follow organization processes. And the challenge for organizations is to say, how do we work with sales in a processized form? That really is the challenge for most organizations. So far as you recognize this conflict, I think you'll be in a much better position to manage those. To developing those skills, today is no longer about the sales guy alone being able to sell. It's about solutioning guys working with the sales guys. It might involve pricing specialists once you get into larger deals, for example. It might involve legal, for example, to be present with the client, for example. Like one of the deals that we were working with in the US, typically the US clients are very, very, what should I say, contract centric. The whole thinking is around contracts. And very early in the cycle, they get lawyers into conversations. And that to me actually was quite intimidating, okay? So we figured that, hey, looks like this is the way business gets done in the US. So we brought in our own lawyer to work with us during those conversations and meetings, okay? Recognizing those is an important thing, and making sure that those core expertise are coming into those client conversations is very, very important, okay? Solutioning guys, most solutioning guys are heavily delivery centric, which relatively speaking is a more or less black and white world. But once it comes into the sales cycles, typically you're not going to get a very black and white world. Things will change, you don't have enough information, you may have to make some assumptions, etc., etc. How well are you able to work in that environment? It's a key challenge for many solutioning guys. But the net message is that, hey, you have the capability, these skills can be acquired, so far as you are willing to participate in that sales cycle. And then, of course, the entire content which needs to support sales, which is right from decks to white papers to credentials and all of those which may even have to support a proposal process, for example. So the key challenge for organizations when they get into complex B2B selling is how do you create all this within the organization so that you can support sales? And imagine a scenario where, let's say, your sales guy is sitting in a very remote geography. He may or may not appreciate all of this. So do you have somebody who's going to support that sales organization with all of these? In many organizations, you have the pre-sales function who helps you do that. Or rather, it harnesses the organization resources and brings them together and supports sales. So something to keep in mind. We talk about relationship selling, we talk about relationship management. I'm sure you have heard this, term many, many times. One of the things that salespeople typically tend to have in their heads is what's called as a heat map, which looks something like this, which is who are the stakeholders, what is their affinity towards buying, or what is their affinity towards change, what is their affinity towards a vendor like us or a provider like us, okay? What are some of their hot buttons? What is concerning them, for example? Is it growth? Is it cost reduction? Is it reskilling their people maybe? Is it customer satisfaction, their customer satisfaction, for example? What are some of those hot buttons? Now, this whole relationship selling or relationship building in the old world used to be the sole responsibility of sales, but it's no longer possible. Simply because when you have multiple stakeholders, sales alone will not have the capability to be able to engage with those multiple stakeholders. I will just give you a simple example. If you have an infrastructure specialist in the client organization, sales may not have the technical know-how to be able to engage with that infrastructure specialist. You may need to get your infrastructure specialist to go and talk to them. Now the question here is, our infrastructure specialists, are they prepared to engage in a conversation with the client? Are they equipped? Do they have the right know-how? Do they know what questions to ask? Are all key issues that come into play when you are getting into B2B selling and therefore many-to-many engagements that happen. Okay? But clearly, I think the moral of the story as far as this slide is concerned is to say that all of us need to be out there selling to our clients. Okay. How much time do I have? Another few more minutes? Couple of minutes. Ooh, okay, all right. Try and do as much as I can. So clearly, there are many challenges in developing the understanding with clients. That it requires multiple iterations for sure. That there is no formal technique by which you develop understanding. Okay, everybody uses their own method. It's many times like the big elephant in the room, and all of us are blind. So whoever touches the leg thinks that's the elephant. Whoever touches the trunk thinks that's the elephant, and so on and so forth. Because there are lack of techniques to be able to develop this understanding of the client. Even if you have some such technique, how do you present your understanding both to clients as well as internal stakeholders? You know, these are complex opportunities that we are talking about. How do you manage different views, and how do you reconcile them, agree with them, discard them, etc., etc.? All issues that do come up in developing the challenging, or the challenges in developing an understanding. Unlike a lawyer scenario, which is just one versus sometimes multiple, in B2B selling, these do become quite significant, okay? Leaving your biases out, something which is very, very important, and I'll just give you a very politically incorrect joke on this one, and to just illustrate this point. So back in time, thank God all personalities in this joke are dead, rest in peace. So Rajiv Gandhi attended a course on logic, and he was very thrilled with this course, and he wanted to try this out. So he was just walking along and he saw Gyani Zail Singh. I don't know how many of you know Gyani Zail Singh. He was our ex-president, wonderful Sardar. So he sees Gyani Zail Singh and says, Gyani ji, I want to test my logic skills. So Gyani Zail Singh said, okay. So he said, Gyani ji, do you have a fish tank in your home? I said, yes. Said, if you have a fish tank at home, that must have water? Yes. If it has water, it must have fish? Yes. If it has fish, somebody must be feeding the fish? Yes, yes, yes. And I presume that maybe you have a wife who feeds that fish? Oh, yes, yes, yes. So Gyaniji said, if you have a wife, maybe you also have kids? Say, yes, of course. So then Rajiv Gandhi says, then you're not a homosexual. So Gyaniji was very impressed. He says, wow, this is great. Now I'm going to try this course on logic with somebody else. So he goes and catches hold of his friend Buddha Singh. Says, Bhutta Singh, do you have a fish tank at home? Bhutta Singh is saying, no. Oh, then you're homosexual. I'd warned you this is a politically incorrect joke, but never mind. The point to illustrate here is the leap of logic that we go through with clients is somewhat like this. Many a times we tend to do that. And that's something which is extremely challenging to drop off. Okay? So far as you're aware, chances are you'll do a good job of it. And therefore, also a structure that once you have developed the understanding, how do you roll it forward into the downstream process is something which is very, very important. Okay. It's a lag between this and that. Okay. So what really goes into closing a deal? Okay. So you have a client who has some pains or gains. No client buys anything if he doesn't see a pain or a gain. Okay. This is jumping too fast. You are developing a solution to solve those pains or gains. Okay. One of the key inputs is client intelligence. What's happening in the client's organization? You know, how well are they doing? What is their buying history? Are they more outcome based? Are they more cost based? You know, things like that. And typically sales guys will have a lot of intelligence about the client along these lines. Then you have competition intelligence. Maybe a competition is already present in that account and they're doing something there. Good, bad, ugly. Maybe they did a project which failed. Useful information. Okay. Then there is client intelligence external. What's available in the open space out there? Google being our greatest friend there to get a lot of information, for example, including many, many databases like Hoover.com and so many databases that Dun & Bradstreet, for example, gives you a lot of information and things like that. Similarly, competition intelligence. We are hearing a lot of information about how some of the big IT companies are now looking at how to work in a very transformed world, you know, more automation, less number of people and things of those nature are very, very useful inputs. And all this goes into developing the right solution, understanding the client context, supported by credentials and capability, and using the right people and right content, and hopefully a winning proposition that goes in front of the client. Okay? And what is important is largely this is what is done by sales. And largely this is what gets done by pre-sales. I'm calling it pre-sales in a loose way. In many organizations, pre-sales is a very formal, well-defined function. In many organizations, it's a virtual function. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. Okay? What needs to be recognized is clearly the boundary between sales and rest of the organization. Having said that, at the end of the day, there are really only three choices. Okay? And I felt that this was a very, very interesting slide. And clients want good, cheap, fast. But unfortunately, they can only choose two. I think there was one lady who was talking about, in a price-sensitive market with competition from Amazon and Microsoft and all of those, what do we do? One of the key questions for organizations like those is to say, which end are we positioning ourselves? Are we going to be the good and fast, or the fast and cheap, or what? And these are organization choices that you will have to make. Okay? Because that's what is going to define your identity in front of your clients. Okay? And many, many times it looks like this. What the client starts off with as things progress, and finally what he wants. But time and again I have gone through this, trust me. One of the things, and I'm learning this hard lessons, is when he wants this, ask him how much money do you have on the table. One thing which I think culturally I believe we Indians are a little averse of talking is money early in the cycle. It's not that we are money greedy or money, of course we want to have money and we want to make money and our business is all about making money, but it's also about testing where the client stands, okay? Something which is very, very important. If you remember the Maruti ad, this guy shows him the great yacht and all of those, and he says, "Kitna deti hai?" So similar conversations is what you need to have as early as possible in the cycle, okay? That's it, I'm done. Happy to take any questions. Couple of minutes, Srikanth, if you don't mind, for any questions. Okay. So I'm happy to take it offline as well, around lunch, if you want to do that. Yes, please, quick one, tell me.
Yeah, this is from an e-commerce perspective.
Yeah.
All that you spoke is good for any service offering organization or product organization. When it comes to e-commerce, where does the salespeople sit? What is the role of salespeople here? Because we never interact with the salespeople there. So
none to very little.
What's the role of sales here?
None to very little.
So only the marketing role is there.
Yeah, marketing plays a very significant role in e-commerce type companies. I'm assuming that you have a website and you have, people typically buying off the website and you're supplying, through some distribution warehouse kind of thing. So the role of sales in those kind of organizations is pretty much nil. I mean, take somebody like Flipkart. I'm not even sure whether they will have any salespeople in their organization.
When it comes to onboarding the sellers,
yeah.
So do you see any role of a sales there, or what is that the only role of marketing, or who does that?
Onboarding of sellers, I don't know what an e-commerce company would do, but according to me, onboarding of sellers is still not, how do I put it? It doesn't require any solutioning to be done. It just needs to follow a certain set of policies, processes, and I guess contracts to be signed. I would imagine that any e-commerce company worth its salt would have all these in place. So onboarding of sellers becomes more like an engine as opposed to, the lawyer example that I gave you, where a property dispute A versus property dispute B can be way, way different, by orders of magnitude.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. KK, before we kind of close. Thank you all. And I would also want kind of place on record the sales and marketing special interest group at NASSCOM, which has actually worked tirelessly for this summit. Some of them are here, some of them are not here. Thank you all for ensuring and supporting this endeavor. Thank you.